It's one of the biggest questions we can ask about ourselves. Why are we like this? Why do we, out of all the apes, walk around on two legs? It seems so normal to us, but it's bizarre. No other mammal does it quite this way. We are the weirdos of the animal kingdom. And the reason we started doing it isn't a simple, clean answer. It's not one thing. It's a messy story with a bunch of clues, a few red herrings, and a lot of debate. It's a detective story about our own bodies, played out over millions of years on the continent of Africa. To understand why we stood up, we first have to understand what life was like before. Picture our ancestors maybe 7 or 8 million years ago. They were apes. Not chimpanzees, not gorillas, but something that was the common ancestor to all of us. They lived in the dense, lush forests of Africa. Life was good in the trees. Food was there, safety was there, they moved through this world like other apes do. They were likely comfortable on 4 limbs, maybe knuckle walking on the ground like a chimp, maybe spending most of their time climbing. Their bodies were built for that life. Long arms, short legs, grasping feet. A body plan for the forest. But then, the world started to change. Africa began to split apart. The Great Rift Valley started to form, a massive geological scar running down the continent. This colossal tectonic activity threw up mountains. These mountains changed the weather patterns. They blocked the rain coming in from the west. The climate got drier. The huge continuous forest began to break up. It didn't just turn into an open grassland overnight, it became a patchwork, a mosaic. There were still dense patches of forest, but now there were also open woodlands and stretches of savanna in between. This is the stage. The environment our ancestors knew was disappearing. The old way of life was becoming harder. The distance between one patch of trees and another was getting longer. The ground was becoming a more important place. And that's where the pressure started. Evolution isn't about a goal. It's not about trying to become human. It's about solving the problems of the here and now. The problem for our ancestors was this new, broken up world. How do you survive in it? The answer, it seems, was to stand up. But standing up is hard. It's an engineering nightmare. You're taking a stable, 4-legged design and trying to balance it on 2 points. It requires a total redesign of the body. And we can see that redesign in the fossil record. It's the proof that this change happened, and it tells us how. First, you have to start with the feet. An ape's foot is like a hand. It has a big, opposable toe, great for grabbing branches. Our feet are completely different. Our big toe is in line with the other toes. It's big and strong, but it can't grab anything. It's there to provide the final push-off when we walk. We also developed arches in our feet. We have 3 of them, in fact. They act like springs, absorbing the shock of walking and returning the energy for the next step. Our feet became platforms, not hands. Then you move up to the legs. Our legs are long compared to our arms. And apes are the other way around. Long legs mean a longer stride. That's more efficient for covering ground. And our thigh bones, the femurs, don't go straight down. They angle inwards from the hip to the knee. This is called a valgus knee. It looks a little knock-kneed, but it's critical. It brings our knees and feet directly under our center of gravity. This allows us to balance on 1 leg at a time while we walk, without wobbling all over the place. The pelvis is maybe the biggest change of all, and ape's pelvis is long and narrow. Ours is short, broad, and bowl-shaped. This change does 2 things. It provides a wide base of attachment for the powerful gluteal muscles, our butt muscles, which are massive in humans. They are what keep us from pitching forward every time we take a step. The bowl shape also acts as a basket holding our internal organs up. Without this, our guts would just sag down. The spine had to change too. A chimp's spine is a fairly straight, stiff arch. Ours has an S-curve. It curves in at the lower back and out of the upper back. This acts like a spring, absorbing the shock of walking and keeping our torso balanced over our hips. And finally, the head. Your head is heavy. Balancing it on top of a vertical spine is a challenge. In apes, the hole where the spinal cord enters the skull, the foramen magnum, is at the back of the skull. This is because their spine is more horizontal. In us, the foramen magnum is right at the bottom of the skull. This means our head is balanced directly on top of our spine. We don't need huge neck muscles just to hold our head up and look forward. All these changes didn't happen at once. They took millions of years. We see early hominins like Ardipithecus ramidus from 4.4 million years ago, who had a grasping big toe but a pelvis that showed she could walk upright. We see Lucy Australopithecus afarensis from 3.2 million years ago with her angled knee and more human-like pelvis. The evidence is clear. We stood up long before our brains got big. The walking came first. It's the foundational shift of our lineage, so we know how it happened. We can see the anatomical evidence. But that brings us back to the great mystery. Why go through all this trouble? The disadvantages are obvious. It makes us slower. A chimp can outrun a human over short distances. It puts incredible strain on our backs, our hips, our knees. It makes childbirth incredibly dangerous. A wider pelvis for walking has to be compromised with a narrow enough birth canal to hold the baby up. This trade-off has caused immense suffering and death throughout human history. So the benefits must have been huge. They must have been a matter of life and death. For a long time, the main idea was the savanna hypothesis. It's the classic story you see in documentaries. Our ancestors moved out of the trees and onto the open savanna. Standing up let them see over the tall grass. They could spot predators from further away. They could see where the food was. It makes a nice, simple picture. The problem is the evidence doesn't quite fit. When we look at the fossils of the earliest bipeds like Artie and Lucy and we analyze the environment they lived in, it wasn't an open savanna. It was a woodland environment. There were still lots of trees. The big shift to a true wide open savanna happened much later. So, seeing over tall grass probably wasn't the initial reason. It might have become a benefit later on, but it doesn't seem to be the spark. So scientists had to look for other reasons. One of the strongest contenders is all about our hands. The moment you stand on two legs, your hands are free, and free hands can do a lot of things. This is the carrying hypothesis. Think about it. You can carry food. In a world where food sources are more spread out, being able to gather a bunch of fruit or nuts and carry it to a safer place to eat is a big advantage. You're not stuck eating everything right where you find it exposed to predators. And you can also carry tools, or the raw materials for tools. The first stone tools don't appear until much later, but our ancestors might have been using simple tools like sticks to dig for tubers or rocks to crack nuts long before that. Being able to carry your favorite cracking rock with you is a huge plus, and maybe most importantly, you can carry babies. A chimp baby clings to its mother's fur. The mother is still mobile on all fours, but our ancestors were losing their fur. A helpless, furless infant is a problem. If the mother has to hold her baby, she can't move efficiently on four limbs. But if she's walking on two, she can hold her baby and walk at the same time. This keeps the baby safe and the group mobile. This idea, especially the part about carrying food, is really powerful. It hints at a change in social behavior. Maybe males were carrying food back to females and they're young. This suggests provisioning, pair bonding, a new kind of family structure starting to emerge, all because our hands were free. Then there's the idea of temperature. The thermoregulation hypothesis. Africa is hot. If you're walking around in the middle of the day, the sun is beating down on you. If you're on all fours, your entire back is exposed to the direct overhead sun. That's a huge surface area getting baked, but if you stand up, you present a much smaller target to the midday sun. It's only your head and shoulders get the direct hit. At the same time, you lift your torso up into slightly cooler, breezier air layers, away from the heat radiating off the ground. Standing up turns you into a natural radiator, helps you stay cool. In a world that was getting hotter and drier and where you might have to travel further in the open, being able to manage your body heat would have been a massive advantage. It means you could be active for longer during the day when many four-legged predators were resting in the shade. Another powerful idea is about efficiency, the energy efficiency hypothesis. This one might seem counterintuitive because walking upright can feel strenuous, but it turns out that for long-distance travel at a walking pace, bipedalism is incredibly efficient. A chimpanzee knuckle walking uses far more energy to cover the same distance as a human. Our long striding gait is like a pendulum. We just fall forward with each step, letting gravity do a lot of the work. Our tendons and ligaments store and release energy like rubber bands. In that new, patchy environment, where you might have to walk a mile or more between one food source and the next, energy efficiency is everything. The individuals who could get from point A to point B without being exhausted were the ones who were going to eat, survive, and reproduce. Saving energy meant you had more energy for other things, like growing a baby or a bigger brain. These ideas are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they probably all work together. It's not a single why, but a cascade of whys. This is where the story gets really interesting. Maybe it didn't even start on the ground. Some scientists propose a postural origin. Think about an orangutan or a chimp in a tree. They often stand up on a branch to reach for fruit just above them. They use their arms for balance, but their legs are straight. This is a form of bipedalism. What if our ancestors were doing this a lot? What if in that woodland environment there was a lot of food on lower shrub-like trees? Standing up to feed over and over would pre-adapt the muscles and bones for walking. The bipedal posture came first as a way to eat, and the walking followed. Now you can see how all the pieces might fit together. Imagine an early ancestor in a woodland. They stand up on two legs to reach for some fruit, reaching hypothesis. This posture also helps them stay a bit cooler. Thermoregulation hypothesis. Because they are practicing this posture, their bodies start to change, becoming better at it. And then, when they have to cross an open patch of ground to get to the next set of trees, they find that walking on two legs, while maybe awkward at first, saves them energy over a long-distance energy efficiency hypothesis. While they are walking, their hands are free, so they can pick up a rock or a big fruit they found and take it with them. Carrying hypothesis. This makes the trip even more worthwhile, and while they are standing and walking, they happen to have a better view of their surroundings and can see that lion over in the distance a little sooner, a bonus from the old savanna hypothesis. It's not one advantage. It's a suite of advantages. It's a feedback loop. Being a little better at walking gives you a slight edge. That edge means you're more likely to survive and have kids. Your kids inherit your slightly better for walking anatomy. Over thousands of generations, these small advantages add up, driving the complete anatomical overhaul from ape to hominin. The environment kept changing, and bipedalism just kept being a better and better solution to the problems that environment presented. There's another, more speculative idea that's worth mentioning. It's about social dynamics. The display hypothesis. In many primate species, standing up is a threat display. It makes you look bigger, more intimidating. It's a way of saying, don't mess with me. It's possible that standing up became part of our ancestors' social lives. The males who could stand up most impressively might have been more successful in competing with other males or more attractive to females. It could have been a form of social signaling that got wrapped up in the whole evolutionary package. The truth is probably a mix of all of the above. The initial push might have been for feeding in the trees. This postural shift then proved useful on the ground for a whole host of reasons: efficiency, cooling, carrying, and seeing. It was a perfect storm of environmental pressure and anatomical potential, but the story doesn't end there. Because, once we were committed to walking upright, it changed everything else about us. It's the decision that sent us down a completely different evolutionary road from the other apes. The consequences were enormous. Freeing the hands was the big one. Our hands, no longer needed for walking, became specialist tools for manipulation. They are marvels of dexterity. They allowed us to make and use tools with a precision no other animal can match. And tool use changed our diet. We could butcher carcasses, get at nutrient-rich bone marrow, and dig for calorie-dense tubers. This new high-quality diet provided the fuel for a very expensive organ, a big brain. So, walking upright leads to free hands. Free hands lead to better tools. Better tools lead to a better diet. A better diet leads to a bigger brain. It's a direct line. But there was a dark side to this bargain. That re-engineered, bowl-shaped pelvis, so great for walking, created a bottleneck for childbirth. As our brains got bigger, babies' heads got bigger, so we had a terrible evolutionary conflict, a narrow birth canal, and a baby with a big head. This made childbirth for humans uniquely difficult and dangerous, and it led to another one of our defining traits. We are born ridiculously early. A human baby is completely helpless. Its brain is only about a quarter of its adult size at birth. Most of its brain growth happens out in the world. We are born unfinished. This is a solution to the childbirth problem. Get the baby out before its head gets too big to fit. But it creates a new problem: a long, extended period of childhood dependency. A helpless baby requires constant care. This would have required a massive shift in social structure. The mother would have been completely tied up with childcare. She would have needed help. She would have needed provisioning, protection. This reinforces the ideas about pair bonding and cooperative groups. We need to become intensely social to survive our own difficult birth and long childhood. And that long childhood, in turn, is what makes our big brains so powerful. It gives us years and years to learn, to play, to absorb the culture and knowledge of our group. Our brain isn't just pre-programmed, it's a learning machine that is shaped by its environment and its society. This long learning period is a direct consequence of being born early, which is a direct consequence of the tight squeeze of childbirth, which is a direct consequence of having a pelvis designed for walking upright. Everything connects back to that first tentative step. The simple act of standing up set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately lead to tool use, to fire, to language, to art, to agriculture, to cities, to spaceships. It's the single most important thing that ever happened in our evolutionary history. We didn't stand up so we could one day write poetry. We stood up to get the next meal. We stood up to carry our babies. We stood up to stay cool under a hot sun. It was a short-term solution to a local problem. But it was the solution that opened up a billion new possibilities. We are the walking apes. And we have been walking away from our ape cousins ever since on a path that started with nothing more than the decision to put one foot in front of the other. The real reason we started walking upright is because it was a good enough idea at the time, and it just happened to unlock the future. It was an accident, but it was the accident that made us human.